All right, yesterday I changed the line cord on this thing, and I went looking for a good set of schematics. I had found a lot of Collins 51J-4 schematics, but this model is a 51J-1. It's the very first model. There was no 51J without a number after it. This is the first one. It has the square PTO. I found the schematics. I found the explanation for everything. It turns out the first model they made was 51J-1 with the square PTO. Then they came out with a 51J-2, which they call the early model, which also has the square PTO. And then also the 51J-2 has a later model which has the round PTO. Now right now what I'm working on is changing the electrolytic. And the electrolytic capacitor, it tests good. I can't find a date code on it, so I automatically consider it will fail if I leave it on there. I don't want to lose anything. Now, it was mounted in this radio with one of these insulators. And this is a Bakelite insulator. And over the years, they become brittle and they break, and it broke. And I want to warn you, this power supply is very similar to the command radios. They isolated the can itself from ground. All right, the can itself is the return. Am I in the frame? The return for the two capacitors. There's 240 microfarad capacitors in here at 450 volts. No problem. I got a bag of these. So what I come up with was I'm going to mount two capacitors in this, and it should fit. All right. I hate looking at the camera backwards. It works backwards. So anyway, this is an old piece of vector board, and it's still pretty flexible. And holding on to these two little caps like this, it should never break. But I want to warn you, the grounds on this capacitor, the chassis itself, this does not go to the chassis. It's isolated with a Bakelite ring. And the ground of the power supply for the high voltage goes up to a resistor, then to ground, just like the command radios. So if you go in there and you don't jot things down, you can get yourself into some real trouble. You'll put the minus or the ground voltage to ground, and it doesn't belong there. The return, we should call it the return. We shouldn't call it minus. We shouldn't call it ground. We should call it the return of the circuit. Now, up here you'll see a bunch of wires, and you may see numbers on them. And I've learned, working with command radios, the wires have all turned to the same color. They were like originally white with blue stripes, red stripes. Well, they've all oxidized, and they've all turned like a yellow color, orangey yellow color. And I know not to take a picture of it and then take it apart and expect the picture to help me out. As I take each wire off, I label where it goes, and I have a book off to the side that tells me where 3 goes to. Now 3 goes, I can tell you, it goes to one of the terminals of the capacitor. There's a bunch of number 3 wires, and they go up here where I have a broken resistor. But in other words, you got to label each wire as you're taking it off, or actually put the label on the wire. You take a piece of what would say masking tape, and you rip yourself off a piece of masking tape, and you put the number in two places on the masking tape. So if this is a 5, you do that. Looks like an S, but I'm in trouble with the camera today. I'm having trouble with me today. All right, so you got two two fives on a piece of tape, and then you rip it, and then you put this around the wire itself. Should be, you can do it neater than this, but in other words, every wire before you remove it, you want to label it, because especially on this model, the schematic for this is very, I won't say it's blurry, it's just not very vivid. A person did me the favor, or everybody else a favor, of making a copy and putting it on the internet. And if you really want to find good information on the Collins radio, stay away from the conferences. You'll just get bad information. Like that one guy jumped on someone. Guy came in, he says, I got a Collins 51J-1. And you know, he knew it was weird. He couldn't find it anywhere. And then the guy told him there's no such thing as a -1. Yes, there is. There's a -1. Oh, and as far as the -1s, they figure only 100 of them might have been made, and they were basically samples for like the government and different companies. And then they took out the square PTO, and it became a -2. So this is an extremely rare model, and I'm trying to be as nice as I can to it. I'm not drilling any extra holes into it. I'm going to leave it all original. In other words, other than the line cord, the guy that owned this at some point decided to drill out the line cord hole, and he used a Heiko, but he didn't square the hole. See, when you drill a Heiko hole, there's some drilling and some filing, and it's an oval hole with flat sides. It has two flat sides. And when you put that Heiko in there, it's in there, and it doesn't rotate. But of course, the easy way out is just to drill at a certain size, and you pop your Heiko in there, and it will work, but it can shift around over a period of time. But I just want to show you, I'm still on it, and every day I do a little bit. Like one day I put the line cord, then I go looking for the schematic. I have schematics for the Collins 51J-4, and that's what I do. I go reading. I keep reading. At this point, I still don't know what PTO means. I know it's the VCO, the variable controlled oscillator of the radio. I know how it works. I built them. And I know that the PTO has a heater in it and a temperature regulation. And I know all the parts that are inside the PTO, but I haven't bumped into what PTO actually stands for yet. And looking at this radio, there are things that have been added into this radio. So, and on the internet, there are mods for this thing. So once I get the power supply, I could fire this up and go through it. That's the only way you can find yourself to a section that's got a problem. And over here, there's a resistor that just goes to nowhere. So this unit has been touched or bodged. And I just wanted to, I wanted to tell you that there are several models. There is a -1. I told you that before. I told you that you can tell right away by that square PTO. It's not a round can. It's a square can. As far as the frequencies on the front, in the front dial, it says 51J, just like the other ones do. And that's probably where that guy got confused, and then he messed somebody up. Somebody was asking him, they had a problem, and this guy right away told him that the model he had doesn't exist. Well, this could be the radio. You know, this could be one of them. There's only a few of them made, and I bought this based on price. I didn't buy it based on the rarity of it. And I probably could put it up on eBay and wait long enough, but it's been bodged. There's things in here that have been touched. And I noticed these standoffs don't look original. I don't know yet, because the schematics and pictorials for this model are rare. I found the early model schematic for the 51J-2, which has the square PTO, and I can get help on the PTO from that one. And then I did find the schematics for the 51J-1, but you know, they're not a great copy, but it's still better than nothing. And that's why I'm being very careful with any wires that I remove from anything. I put labels on them first. And you know, this will be mounted with two little capacitors on it, up in the same hole. It's going to be in the same place. And I think this is probably still good. I did some tests on it, and it looks good to me. But I don't want to have this in the radio, and then 2 months from now have to do this. That's why I'm doing it. And also, when you got a good power supply, it's a matter of the drop in voltage isn't right in a certain area. You don't keep questioning the power supply. Once you know you got a good capacitor in there, you know the transformer is good, you know your rectifier tube's good, and then it's a matter of just working along in the radio and finding out what is actually wrong. Now this radio looks like it's got a lot of hours on it, and I told you, if you're really interested in tuned circuits and mechanical gears, this has it all. This has every nightmare that you could ever want, all under one hood. I think that's it. All right, that's it.